The Philadelphia Phillies are the class of the NL East. Postseason is in full swing. We're going to be digging into, well, all the hyperbole around all the top seeds being eliminated from this year's postseason, and also the breaking news that Great Britain are in Pool C in the World Baseball Classic. All on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins, your daily Marlins podcast with me, Peter Pratt. Don't forget to follow me, guys, on Twitter, of course, at UK. Subscribe to the pod. They're free and available wherever you get them. If you are watching, yes, you will know we have a YouTube channel also. Hello and greetings. Hit subscribe there also. And it's the Monday episode. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Delighted to welcome in the house Shaun Barrett, the UK GOAT. Shaun, how are we doing?
Not too bad, Pete. I've got a bit of a day-to-day illness, but I'm still here, still playing through it. Can't wait to talk baseball with you.
Same, brother. And for those that are listening, Mace today with man flu, if that's the right description, with cold. So it's that time of the year, guys, isn't it? Shaun, we're going to start today with postseason action, and there has been some serious action. And we were talking before we hit record, with the way the timings have played out, we've had some eyeballs on a lot of our NL East friends, I would say, as the kind of first couple of weeks we've got going. What's this postseason thus far? We recorded on Monday, so we're recording pre-game from the Yankees and Guardians. Nevertheless, what's been your take thus far?
Main takeaways, I'm actually watching. I don't often watch a lot of playoff baseball. I kind of shut it down as soon as the Marlins do. But I've really enjoyed it. I've watched all the games I can, the UK friendly ones, and yeah, I think this new format is definitely creating some buzz and some conversation. And there've been some really good games. It's so fun to watch games where the stakes are so high that I think I heard one of the broadcasts talk about the idea that a base runner is the start of a run. It is that case of like everything's so hyper that a guy getting on base, all of a sudden you're thinking about, are we going to pull the pitcher? Are we going to pitch around the next guy? It's so micromanaged. It's an exciting format of baseball compared to the long hard slog of 162.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it's the key. The key thing when you kind of look at them is just the difference of intensity is just so heightened in the postseason, where every minor little detail just matters seemingly so much more. The fans are into it more. The ballparks are absolutely packed out, other than if you're the Mets and you've got a win to stay in game and you don't bother turning up. But I mean, this Phillies Braves series, mate, and Philadelphia in particular, it looked absolutely wild. And I mean, for me, there've been a lot of them. There was one you mentioned about micromanaging and making decisions about pitchers, but the one moment for me that stands out is the Rhys Hoskins, I don't know, Gronk spike of the bat immediately, hands up, Gronk spiked the bat, massive home run. I mean, that will live in baseball, in postseason, in Philadelphia history forever. What a moment. Giant killing, let's call it. But have you got any other standout moments that come to your mind? I mean, that's probably one of them, but I'm sure there's plenty of others.
No, I think that's definitely something to be seen. I think there was a home run yesterday and a huge celebration around the bases as well, which was, to me, a bit bizarre because you were still losing the game. But, it's playoff baseball, and I'm sure that as he hit that home run, he wasn't thinking about the score. He was just thinking about, the excitement in the moment. And you mentioned the Phillies game, and it's just so fun to watch, even though they're your rivals and you don't want to see them do well. When they're beating another rival, it's a little bit easier to root for them, especially when it's the Braves. But to see a crowd full of people swinging their towels or their flags or whatever you want to call them, you've got the Philly fanatic, who is, in my opinion, the best mascot out there, just going absolute hype in the crowd. It's exciting, isn't it? It's a novelty, and we've got plenty more to go, and I'm going to continue to enjoy watching it.
Yeah, I think, and the fact that you get UK-friendly games, they don't really overly space them out. They've been playing, 3 or 4 games on a single day, so it means you'd normally get, one UK-friendly, if not 2, which in that, but and the way things work, it's normally the Braves. Like, it was the same back in 2020, I recall, back in 21, again in 22. The Braves are always in this kind of daytime graveyard shift in many ways. What was your take then? The Braves got bounced in 4 games here after, another great regular season, chasing down the Mets. The Mets obviously got bounced early as well by the Padres. And then the Braves getting bounced. The same magic that maybe they did in 21, where like everything went their way, where like the role player that they traded for seemed to show up. It wasn't quite the same in 22, and I think the pitching was a bit of a problem for the Bravos. Big surprise though they went out, though, do you think?
To a certain degree, yeah. But if you look at what the Phillies have done, I mean, they've got you look at that lineup, and I think that's been the case all year. You look at that lineup, and you've got bats throughout. And I think it was just a case of they got hot at the right time. They were competing to try and get up into the playoff spots and try and compete for the division. But ultimately, watching the games, I mean, the bats were just completely different. You were watching the Braves, and it was just scoreless inning after scoreless. It was like watching the Marlins all over again. But the Phillies, when they got hot, they pushed on, didn't they? It was a case of it was hit after hit after hit, and then there was the home runs that they were hitting as well. They were just I think they genuinely are going to be a team that I look like they could go all the way.
I always felt with the Phils, and I said it pre-season. The good news is with these pods, it's chalked in history, and you can easily review and look back. And I did say with the Phils, the Nola and the offense are going to be dangerous in the postseason if they can get this far, because Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, JT Reed, obviously Brandon Marsh has been a big addition for them too. I mean, he was kind of dead and buried in Anaheim, really struggling. The Phils have gone and kind of picked him up, made a trade there. Again, there's a history there with Marsh, but nice to see him actually turn it around. At the major league level, different organization, different hitting coach, different approach. Next thing is, you see the results. And this is, as we kind of apply this to the Marlins, mate, you start to think, Donnie's gone, going to be coming, new staff will be coming, definitely on the offensive side. And with that, it kind of gives you hope that some of these guys that maybe regressed last year, the right tweaks with the right dudes, you start to see the results. And the Phillies definitely have benefited from that. The Phillies, for me, they've rotation, they've got hot at the right time, like you said. The Bravos, though, on these is the same with the Dodgers, and maybe the same. Do you think in some ways their regular season records lulled them into a false sense of security, whereas at the deadline, a team like the Padres or the Phillies were more aggressive because they were trying to get in there? But actually, because they've done that, they've ended up bolstering their teams to a point where the talent started to kind of even out a bit. I mean, the Padres added Juan Soto. So, I do think the regular season, because these teams were like way ahead and had made the postseason effectively, they stopped spending. That hurt them. I think the Phils and the Padres both got significantly better. And, well, they're going to be heading off against each other in the NLCS. So what's your take on that one? Do you think maybe those kind of teams ahead were a little bit too safe, maybe?
I'm not sure if it's tough to say because, we're talking about such small sample sizes. You've got The 3-game wildcard now is an improvement on that 1-game coin flip that we used to have. And they've not just done that for competitive reasons, they've done it for financial reasons as well. Let's not kid ourselves.
Agreed.
But even a 5-game series, I mean, if you looked at a 5-game series in the middle of June, you wouldn't hyper-analyze it the way that we do with the playoffs. And obviously there's a reason why the stakes just aren't there. But I think ultimately you always want to turn around and say, the Mets in particular, you've got this $300 million payroll, you've got a 100-win team, and all of a sudden they get bounced winning only one playoff game. I can't imagine the tire file conversation that's happening in New York at the moment. But it is a case of, it's a small sample size, and it is a case of you got to live with the fact that not every year the best team in baseball win the World Series. It's the team that are playing the best baseball at the right time. And exactly. I think it is a case of, the Mets came in cold. The Braves in particular came in cold on the offensive side. And that's why they're no longer here. And if you look at last year, would you say the Braves were the best team in baseball? Probably
well, the
not,
regular season.
The
regular season record says no.
Yeah, but at the right time,
86 games or whatever.
Yeah, but at the right time, the players that they brought in were the players that pushed them over the edge. This year, it's not been their year, and I think it is a case of you're always going to want to try and analyze it. But I think with these small sample sizes, it is a case of it's almost like an any given Sunday situation, isn't it?
It really. The question I've got for you, and don't answer it now because we're going to roll into our first ad. But the question I've got for you is, do they need to adjust the schedule and the way it's been set up? I know we're only 1 year into it, but with all these kind of top seeds, 100-win teams getting chinned, is there a discussion that needs to be had about the postseason schedule, go about it moving forwards? I'll let you dwell on that, Shaun. In the meantime, it's time to let you guys know about our good friends over at Simply Safe. And the numbers, well, they just don't. The last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simply Safe home security. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. So at Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. I know because I use Simply Safe in my own home. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology. It's powered by 24/7 monitoring agents who always have your back. So you've got the 24/7 professional monitoring. The agents, they call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not at home or can't be reached. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room. I can see people kind of trying to get around, watching out for those sensors, stepping over them, windows and doors, you name it, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home. Smarter ways to detect motion than only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. You can visit, and here it is again, simplisafe.mlb to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Wonderful. Okay. So, Shaun, playoff format, new format. Are you happy with it, or does something need to change?
I'm happy with it personally. I mean, I can see why the people that are unhappy with it are unhappy with it, because it's in their mind impacted their ability to win games. I think 5 days, that it's that rest or rust situation, isn't it? Which would you prefer? And we get this in sports all the time. And I think that it's 50-50, isn't it? Sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's the other. If you look at tonight, for example, with Cleveland, they are hurt by the fact that they've played too many games, that their rotation isn't in the right order. So it is a case of, do you go in with your rotation all over the place and already have, on short rest here and there, or do you go with guys that have had 5 days off? Now, I'd like to think that if you're a professional hitter, 5 days off isn't actually 5 days off. You're getting your reps in. Now it's not the same as game time. I get that, but would you rather fly across the country, use up your main aces, and then try and come into a series and try and scramble together a team that can win a series? Or would you rather just have 4 days sat back watching tape and getting a couple of reps in? I don't see the issue with it. Now, you could argue that the sample size could be grown. You've got 5-game series at the moment. Could we stretch that already to 7? I'm sure Major League Baseball owners and the Players Association would enjoy even more money to split between them. So it's a realistic option. That then takes away the risk of using your rotation, because over that 7-game series, you're going to get to use your aces again. So it's interesting, isn't it? I think ultimately they do try to create a competitive balance that is fair, but they also want to just add games to make money. So I think you could realistically see the 5 games become 7 games. You could even see the 3-game wild card become 5 games. I think anytime you look into the future of sports, the one thing you can definitely be assured is that there are going to be more games added. I mean, just look at the NFL adding the 17th game. Bodies be damned. They're going to push it through, and in 10 years' time it'll be 18, and in 15 years' time it'll be 19, and soon the football will never stop. So I think there's growth there, but I don't see a reason to panic and say this hasn't been good, because it has been good. Now, you're not going to say this is the first year, so when you don't see the big market teams like the Dodgers and the Mets in the later rounds, I can see some sort of panic, because ultimately you don't want the small markets. Well, baseball doesn't want the small market teams in the World Series, because they want as many eyeballs on it as they can. But as an outsider looking in, as a fan who has no horse in the race, I'm not too bothered by the idea of there being big market teams in the World Series. All I'm interested in is exciting baseball. And for me, seeing the Mets and seeing the Dodgers and seeing the Braves get bounced soon, for me, has been exciting.
Completely agree. That's the funny thing is, in these games, they end up exciting because you're cheering on the underdogs, and everyone loves an underdog and wants an underdog to win. I mean, who doesn't want to rally against the Mets and the Dodgers and see them kind of overthrown? I mean, everyone. If the Dodgers just roll in and steamroll, the Padres, okay, great. But actually getting these competitive series for me is the key thing. And I think that's the one thing that's like obvious is at this level and at this time of the year, baseball is so competitive versus others, I would say, where you do have like a seeding element to it. Often you get a lot of mismatches that create unwatchable games and products. I remember the NFL maybe last season where wildcard weekend or whatever it was, and it was an absolute dud because the golf in talent was too big. The product was unwatchable. In baseball, it's just not the same. The product is watchable. It's such fine margins. One hit here, one hit there completely changes the game, and these underdogs can win. And that's the beauty of it for me. And I mean, it's just been, and the Braves, themselves, they'll look at it and go, okay, well, we were, 5 days rest and everything. But at the end of the day, I look at the Brave series, and like you, I watched the series. Here's what we saw. Free didn't pitch. Morton didn't pitch, great either. Strider, they rushed him decision to rush Strider back. He was hurt. It backfired on them. The Braves, at the end of the day, they didn't hit great. All the rookie dudes that had come up from Double-A didn't hit at all. And their pitching fell off because it was banged up, ill, or they just had off days. The Phillies capitalized. It is what it is. Like the Braves, it wasn't play well. Or they made dubious calls on bringing guys back a little bit too quickly, Spencer Strider being the obvious one there, where they wanted it. But, yeah, Rhys Hoskins kind of blew that one up in their face a little bit with that 3-run, an iconic moment. And the Dodgers, my main takeaway there, mate, was way things played out, wouldn't it have been interesting if Pablo Lopez was going for the Dodgers there? I think the Dodgers would have really benefited from Pablo Lopez in that rotation. Buehler went down. They in a match in long relievers all year. Lopez would have been the perfect antidote. And that is the point of the Dodgers, maybe the Yankees, they're sitting a little bit passive at the deadline because they've got the postseason wrapped up. You can never have enough pitching. And for these guys, they felt that. These guys that have gone out, the Dodgers, the Braves, and let's say the Yankees get bounced as well. In the end, they were just missing a solid rotation or two. And they could have done. And, for them, I think they were too passive at the deadline and didn't look to add that stud. But overall, for me, my take on the postseason element itself, it's been absolutely phenomenal, better than in the past. For certain, like the 3-game wildcards, great. The 5-gamers, it's all set up for they're at home. They missed the first 2 starting pitchers of the teams, or even the first 3 pitchers if they needed 3 games. Everything's in their favor. But baseball's baseball, and it's a lot of fun. So no way they're changing this postseason approach now. And maybe teams will adjust what they do in that period. The teams that are on the 5-game bye, maybe they can adjust slightly what they do. Start to have some more kind of live looks at some of their arms in the mix to help the hitters stay hot. Maybe. I don't know what they're doing, but roaring success. And I would say there are miles more neutral eyeballs on these games than there have been in the past years, in my opinion. I think more neutrals like you, Shaun, and me, we're watching the games. And baseball, that's a win, irrespective of what the teams that are getting bounced feel. And they'll feel that they want to win. And it stings. I get that. But overall, for me, I think there's more eyeball games. And I mean, the funny thing is, you look to some of the other series. Now we focused on the NL East guys because there's obvious reasons. But you look at the Astros and the Mariners. What do they have? Like 18 innings in one of the games. I think the third game there. An 18-inning 0-0 until the end of 1-0. So, the AL, I guess, plays baseball different. And the Astros have also, they were a top seed and they ended up sweeping the Mariners. And some would say, well, they were a couple of big hits away from Yordan Alvarez from being 2 down in that series. Yeah, they are. But they got the hits. The stud showed up in big spots. And boy, oh boy, Yordan Alvarez really stood up in a big spot there, no doubt. I mean, talking about your point about micromanaging things, when the Mariners bring in, the Blue Jays, earlier in the wild card, they bring in Robbie Ray, I think, to try and close a game out. Robbie Ray hasn't pitched in relief or in a closing situation, I don't think, ever. They bring him in and he gets lit up. What are they doing? Put one of the other relievers in there who knows what they're doing. That's the funny thing, right? Where baseball management, it starts to you overthink it. And I think the Blue Jays overthought that one. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, they were literally a strike away from winning the game. I think 2 points in that inning. And I was watching the game and it was one of those it was eyeballs emoji, wasn't it? I was just literally stood in front of the telly going, oh my God.
Insane.
That's amazing.
Insane.
And what a way for a game to turn. And it was, it was middle, wasn't it? He absolutely yacked it out. So, and it is that case of it's playoff baseball. It's that the game and the series can turn on a knife edge, and you've got teams scrambling, doing things that they just normally wouldn't even think of doing, but because every game is important, every pitch is important. It is that case of you live for today. You're trying to get through a game. That means you pull your starter after 2 innings. And that speaks again to what you were saying about Pablo and how the Yankees. I mean, what would the Yankees do to have Pablo on the mound tonight? Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And I think you've changed my mind. They have sat on their hands, and right now they would be crying out for a guy. And the guy that they didn't trade for Pablo, what's he doing for them tonight? Because he's not helping them win the baseball game.
This is the point, right? These windows, these opportunities, they're the next season. Who knows? You just don't know what happened with the Yankees. So you just have to. I do think you have to go all in, particularly for these big market clubs that can literally buy success out of it too. If they want to go and get some free agents, they can. Like, they don't need to hoard prospects in a way like a Marlins or a Rays want to do. So I'm with you, mate. I think it's intriguing. Where's your head at now, mate? You've got obviously the Phillies, Padres for 7 games, obviously now in the championship series. Who's going to be representing the NL this year?
I think it's going to be the Phillies. I think.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm probably biased because I've watched them more of their games, but they just there's this feeling or at least I think there's this feeling in Philadelphia where they've got, it's almost like it is the Braves last year, and then the AL side is going to be interesting because as much as we talk about the big teams being out there, if the Yankees get through tonight, you've got Yankees Astros. And that's going to be massive, absolutely massive. And ultimately, if they don't make it and Cleveland do, you could end up with a Cleveland Phillies World Series. And I don't think anybody in the world would have had that in spring. So while that might not be the most premier game for the TV networks to sell, it would certainly be an interesting series.
It would. I'm just going to remind everyone, because it wasn't on this podcast, by the way, but a different podcast. And give me your World Series matchup. I went with the Phillies Yankees. That was mine preseason. I'd had 3 bottles of wine when I made that statement, but it's when I make my best predictions. I'm not going to lie, and that has got a serious chance. And let's not forget where the Yankees were at. I mean, it's easy to forget now in October and the year that Aaron Judge has had. But going into the season, the Yankees were really down. The fan base, they were like, we may not even be a 500 club this year. And that team on its back and just carried them. He's having a bit of a down playoff series, actually. And if he turns up big time tonight. But yeah, the funny thing is, like you, we see a lot of the Phillies games and we've seen what they've done to the Braves. But I've equally seen what the Padres have done to the Mets and done to the Dodgers. And I think, boy, I think to be honest with you, I think they're a little bit stronger than the Phillies. And so I'm gonna go and revert getting there. And I think it's the Padres and Astros in the World Series that is what actually happens. And the actual champ, I think the Padres go all the way is my shout now. I think they're absolutely killing Kings left, right, and center. And I think they take it down. That's going to wrap us up for today. We're 27 minutes in, and we've just spoke about the postseason. There was some links to the Marlins, so they may be tenuous, but we've talked about Pablo Lopez somehow. We've talked about, I don't know, maybe we talked about JT Realmuto briefly, the fact that he's on the Phils and he's an absolute king and a star. And how about that inside the park home run? Boy, I wanted to wrap up, but Shaun, I need to ask you about this. The JT Realmuto inside the park home run and the amount of slander going towards Ronald Acuna Jr. for his lack of backing up, for want of a better description, which is fair. He actually didn't back up. He just stood there, and whether it cost them the run, it cost them the inside the park home run. Let's call it that. He would have been on third base probably, but nevertheless, every base counts in the postseason. And for me, that kind of summed up the Braves in many ways there in their postseason run this year, where Ronnie, a little bit lax, made a mistake, and the Phillies made him pay for it. What about you?
I mean, he was, 0 for 7 with multiple strikeouts in the series. He checked out, hadn't he? In my mind, job number 1, rule 101 in baseball, in the field, is you know what you're doing at all times. You're backing up the center fielder. You're backing up at first base. It is a case of you've got to know he knows what he's doing. That's not a mental mistake. That is an effort-based reaction. He's just simply not bothered. Correct. And you back up 100 times, you might not actually need to do anything, but you do it every single time for that one instance when it's important. And look, if JT's on third base instead of scoring that run, does that change the game? Maybe it doesn't. But in the playoffs, we just talked about the idea of small margins. Mm-hmm. And that's how you win baseball games, in those small margins, doing that little bit, going that extra 1% and basically doing your job. It should not be something that you just don't do in the playoffs because you can't be bothered. And to me, that is a player who's checked out, who's quit on the team, and is thinking about where he's going on holiday.
Oh boy, but for Locked On Marlins and all us Marlins fans, we absolutely do not hate to see it. Ronnie Acuna checking out. It led to a run. They conceded a run because of that. And yeah, like you said, 0 for 7, multiple Ks. What a way for Ronnie Acuna. And yeah, small wins for the Marlins fans, I guess, on this one. But nevertheless, that is us done for Monday's episode of Locked On Marlins. We are back tomorrow. Shaun Barrett also joining me. Specifically, we are going to update you on the managerial situation. There has been some interviews, so we're going to recap on those equally. We also have the World Baseball Classic pools that are fully announced now. We're a great in Pool C. They as the US of A plus Canada plus Colombia. So that is going to be wild and a great GB. We're going to dig into all of that tomorrow on Locked On Marlins. In the meantime, thanks for joining me today. Monday's episode. Back tomorrow.